So the title race is really hotting up now. Man City dropping points, now Liverpool dropping points. It really is going to go all the way to the last couple of games, maybe even that last game. But who's in the driving seat now? After Liverpool got a draw at the London Stadium against West Ham, that's 2 draws on the spin. They're starting to have a few wobbles. So Steve McInerney, Esteemed Kompany, that channel is a great Man City channel which you should all go and check out, including his reaction to the Liverpool game yesterday, where he was very happy. He was actually on the kickoff with me on Sunday, and I was amazed at how nervous you were before that game. But that game and then the draw with Liverpool, you must be feeling a hell of a lot better.
Life's good today, mate. The sun is shining. Well, it's not shining. It's Manchester. It's grey and miserable. But it feels like it is. I was genuinely dead nervous last night. I watched the last minute of the game, and on my channel I filmed myself watching the last minute for a laugh. I thought, you know what? I filmed that. And watching back, I was just shaking throughout that. I was convinced Liverpool were going to score towards the end there. And I think that's just born from being a long-term Manchester City fan. I pretty much always do fear the worst. But even I, as a relative pessimist, I was a realist maybe, can't deny the fact that things look pretty good today. They were terrible about a week ago. But all of a sudden, it seems to have changed. The mood seems to have shifted. There are signs of anxiety in Liverpool, and I don't think that's an unfair thing to say at all. And there's signs of hope for Manchester City. I mean, we've got a mountain to climb this week in terms of fixtures with Everton away and Chelsea. But, I mean, even though it isn't technically in our own hands, I feel that it's as good as it can be in terms of having, even though it's not mathematically possible, I still feel like it's as good as it can be in terms of us dictating our own future at the moment, because I feel like if we keep winning, we probably will end up winning the league.
So that's the weird thing here, is because I think I probably agree with you that strangely after this weekend and going off the back of the draw against Leicester as well, where Liverpool they were so close to being a team that was going to be 7 points ahead of Man City. It's an amazing turnaround. What did you see in those Liverpool performances, the last 2, that really made you start to feel like it might be actually your year instead of theirs?
I saw nothing, which is the exact point really, in terms of like a lack of conviction, a lack of any real courage. And they looked like a team who was scared of what's about to happen. And it was a pure anxiety thing. And I've always said Liverpool's greatest strength is also their greatest weakness, in terms of they're an emotional club. And I mean that in a positive way. They're very much a club built around the likes of Gerrard's energy and, you know, that kind of fiery passion. And then Carragher was obviously a talisman for them. And now it's almost like Klopp stepped into that kind of passionate, fiery kind of leader role that they need. But that kind of gets them through games, and it gets them to the Champions League final, that kind of stuff. But sometimes that energy, that it can also result in nervous energy. And to me, against Leicester and West Ham, they look like a team who had been set a little bit of a challenge there, and the realisation of what could happen on the brink of what they're actually on, potentially, kind of got a bit too much for them, because they weren't the free-flowing football that we've come to associate with with Klopp. They weren't this kind of aggressive, confident team. They looked like a team that knew that if they made mistakes, it could come back to haunt them. And it's still so early on in the season. And as a City fan, I'm thinking, well, they're making these mistakes now and looking a little bit tense. What are they going to be like when there's only 4 or 5 games left? Because there's still like 13 games left of the season. So to me, they just look a little bit nervous. And I think I spoke to a few Liverpool fans on Twitter last night, and some of them agreed that, he said maybe the squad's a bit thin and there's certain injuries and whatever. But in general, they're just not playing well. You know, they're not at all.
I think it highlights how strong this Man City squad is, and I think often people can kind of forget that, where when you look at Liverpool and how well they've done and how well they've recruited, regardless of that, when you lose a couple of key players, and say someone like James Milner, who's so important in the middle of midfield for them, has to go play at right back. Joel Matip, who's not a bad player, but he's not, he's not Joe Gomez and how great he has been in the season so far. I think that plays a factor. I also think there is a big element here of they've been the underdog throughout this title race so far. They've been chasing at your heels, and that's been a pressure that Man City have had to deal with. Now it's the shoe's on the other foot, and Liverpool are having to deal with the pressure of being expected to win the title. And that's where I saw it as well in that game yesterday, that there was a tension. You could feel it. They've got something to lose now, and that's hurting them a little bit. But I think it's down to Jurgen Klopp, as someone who has won a title as an underdog, to step in and go and show that kind of calmness, which I think he's he's implemented in this Liverpool team this year more so than previous seasons. They were just really gung-ho in previous seasons. This season, I feel like they have been a bit measured in their approach, and now's the real test with Jurgen Klopp. Do you see any comparisons with that Man City side that was, had the pressure on? They knew they had a great squad, but still hadn't won that first Premier League title. Do you see any comparisons with what you guys went through? Because it wasn't an easy run to that crazy final game, was it? There were a lot of ups and downs along the way.
Not at all. I mean, it's hard to say in terms of, you probably need hindsight for that to be adjudged, but like in general, even then I think we probably had a little bit more quality, if I'm being honest. I still think we do. I think we had some leaders in the team that were willing to grab the game by the scruff of the neck. We had like the likes of Kompany at his very peak. We had Zabaleta, Zawara. We had Yaya Toure and David Silva and Aguero at their very best at their youngest ages. And I think you can see the comparisons in terms of they obviously will feel the pressure. Getting over the line is really difficult. It's a very hard thing to do, and it could be that it could be in Veritum that they need to go behind again to chase. It could be that kind of situation where they need to feel like they're not the ones leading the way. For me, I want to go back to Klopp a little bit, because I feel like Klopp actually has made a few mistakes recently. A few ill-advised mistakes. I really believe that winning breeds winning, and I think if you throw cup competitions, you're sending out the very wrong message. And I think we'd all agree that against Wolves in particular in the FA Cup, he threw that game, pretty much threw it, and they looked down on the Carabao Cup as well. That team was... It was a game against a Premier League team, and they played essentially a bunch of reserves. And at a time, Liverpool needed a win because they'd just been beaten by City, and I just think you have to win. And when Guardiola, we realised we lost a couple of games, what he did instead was play his strongest team against the likes of Rotherham and Burton, because he was saying to them, go out there and you have to make up for your mistakes, and you have to show that this team is a team that wants to win, and you're not having the rest stuff, you're not having a holiday. And I think for me, Klopp could have played a stronger team in those games, and I also think his reaction to last night's game, maybe.
I think one thing I would say with that, but one thing quickly on the change in the team, I get that, but this is something that you're going to have to deal with now. Man City are going to have to deal with, and I don't think anyone would dispute that they have a more squad depth. But you've been in the League Cup that whole way through. The Burton game, obviously that was easy, but you still played a lot of your big players in that. And then coming into the next couple of months, you've got the 2 games against Schalke, which you would be expected to go and win that game, which means another 2. So you're still in the Champions League, you're still in the FA Cup. There's going to be so many games, whereas Liverpool, after the Bournemouth game, they've got a 2-week break. So it can go both ways, that part of it, don't you think?
That adds a lot of pressure, though. Essentially, what you do, though, if you're putting all your eggs into one basket, which it looks like they could be tempted to do, the problem with that is, even though it makes sense, as everything, there's always a positive and negative side of anything. If you put all your eggs in one basket, and then there's any first signs of a wobble, then you think, have we prioritised this too much? And all of a sudden, what if this doesn't pull through? Because if that doesn't pull through, then we've put everything there, and then we've given up that, and all these questions of doubt come in. Whereas the whole cliche about taking it one game at a time, it does seem to make sense. And I don't think you should plan for what should happen in 3 months' time, apart from just maybe living in the here and now a little bit more, because all the eggs in one basket is a very dangerous approach, because the second that basket starts to have holes in it, all of a sudden you look very deflated very quickly. And I believe Liverpool...
You're talking about deflated eggs here.
It's a very weird metaphor for a Tuesday.
Everyone, just go back and listen to that one again. It's a good one, honestly. Just go back and listen to it again.
Klopp, to me, what he said after the game last night in the interview, it didn't make any sense. Like in terms of ranting about the officials after everything. It wasn't a very wise call from him. He should have been a little bit more diplomatic, and whether it's fair or not, he got a lot of criticism for that. Pellegrini come out swinging after that one as well, in particular, calling the offside decisions of what they were. But to me, as a City fan watching that interview with Klopp, I was enjoying that, because that was a man who clearly wasn't thinking rationally, because to come out and see what he did afterwards, that's not a logical thing to do.
Yeah, it wasn't. To be honest, I don't think there's any way around that one. That is strange. You get an offside goal, and that's been to your detriment. That was a strange thing for him to say. But I think he, like you said, we've chatted about it already, he's got a huge part to play in guiding this squad. That probably, apart from Milner and Henderson, Van Dijk maybe as well, maybe that is enough leaders, but there's some players in there at the moment that are kind of are having that little wobble, so they need to get back to winning ways in that Bournemouth game. For Man City, Liverpool fans will be screaming at this video going, well, hang on a minute, you lost to Newcastle last week. For a Liverpool fan looking at the cracks of Man City, what would you say that the biggest weakness of Man City is in the running?
Conviction, really. The whole second season syndrome, and there's been some questions asked about whether this team, this squad of players, and a lot of them are still around, can do it again. And there has been some genuine drop-offs in performances particularly around December, the end of December. And I think that's a fair thing to say. From a City fan's perspective, I'm hoping that the fact that De Bruyne is trying to make up for lost time a little bit in terms of he's not been involved much this season. I'm hoping that his tenacity will kind of pull us to a different level, which we probably need in the second half of the season. But yeah, we've lost a lot of games this season, and we're not perfect. If I was a Liverpool fan, I would not be giving up, and it's very tempting to be emotional after a game like that, because I was emotional last week after the Newcastle game. I felt like the deja vu was unfolding again, and for every Liverpool fan who feels like the same thing's happening again as it did 13-14 or whatever, City fans felt exactly the same last week, where in terms of after we won the league, it felt like this is the third season in a row where we weren't going to defend our title. So both sides of the fans, ironically, have this creeping sense of nerve and anxiety about history repeating itself. That's all the way football is. That's what makes it really exciting, to be honest.
Do you think De Bruyne is the most important player here? Do you think he's the guy now? It's almost like a new signing, isn't it? He's the guy that, if there was one player that you needed to, if you could say he can stay fit for the rest of the season, who's the key man for Man City?
Well, it's actually Fernandinho, always Fernandinho, because no other player, in my opinion, in the league has the tactical intelligence to play the role he did against Arsenal, and to play a centre back and play like a false centre back position, like getting forward into midfield and playing pinged passes out to Sterling from an attacking midfielder position, and then 2 seconds later being in a centre back role. He's just phenomenal. He's an absolute athlete, and he's 33 years old, and he's the heartbeat of this Guardiola team. Disaster would strike if he was put out for the rest of the season, because we wouldn't know how to deal with that. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But for me, he's the one. But yeah, De Bruyne obviously a close second, mainly because he brings an impetus and ideas and energy that maybe we were lacking a little bit over Christmas, when David Silva at the moment is actually not in great form. Maybe he had a great start to the season, and maybe he's a little bit tired now because he was used maybe a little bit too much than he should have been at the start of the season, because we didn't have De Bruyne there or whatever. So maybe we'll see the rise of Bernardo Silva alongside Kevin De Bruyne towards the end of the season. But it's going to be fascinating, genuinely fascinating, and I live for this stuff. Like, this is the fun stuff that City fans and Liverpool fans should be like so excited by, because we've just started February, and we're already having this debate now, and like there's so much football left to play. I would not be surprised if the two teams kept switching at top of the table until the end of the season, because City could be top on Wednesday night, tomorrow night. So,
final question then: why will Man City win the Premier League?
Oh, this is going to be clipped up and thrown in my face, isn't it? In a month's time.
That's why I asked the question.
Cheers, James. Why will disclaimer? I'm answering the question here. Why will City win the league? If we're going to win the league, it'll be because experience. Simple as that. We have a team full of winners who've been there and done it before, and I feel that will pull us through. I think also we've had our big dip. I think we've had our dip in form, that we learned from mistakes. Even against Newcastle, when we scored early on and then slipped up. You could see immediately after the Arsenal game that we did exactly the same thing again, and we'd learned from that. And I feel like we've had enough lessons this season now to kind of slap us back into place where we need to be in focus. And I think experience this season, it's been so up and down, and because we've had our dip already and we're still within touching distance, I feel like we'll realise how lucky we are to still be there, in terms of how lucky we are to still actually have a chance to claim a start, because most teams don't win the league these days when losing that many games. And for me, experience, and because we've had our dip, I think that's the reason City could win the league, because I think Liverpool are overdue a bit of a dip in form, and I think it's happening right about now.
Okay, right, let's know in the comments below, do you think Man City are going to win the league or Liverpool? If you're a Man City fan or generally a football fan, you want to go check out Steve's channel. It's called Esteemed Kompany. Head over there and watch that video I was telling you about, where he's reacting to the Arsenal-Man City game, and it's a fresh reaction to the West Ham Liverpool draw. Steve, thank you very much for coming on Ball Street today. If this is the first time that you've watched Ball Street, then why not hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well if you've enjoyed it. We'll see you very soon.